Don't
Poor
you dare
Waitress
walk away
discovers
from
a
this!
dying
Look at
feared
what you've
Mafia
become!
boss. What
This is
happened
your
next
fault.
changed everything.
You pushed me to the
Her
edge.
worn shoes splashed in shallow puddles, and her thin coat did little to protect her from the chill. The world around her was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional echo of footsteps. Life had been hard for Alara. She had no family, no real home, just the small apartment she rented at the edge of the city and the tiny diner where she worked. Her days blurred into each other, serving customers, washing dishes, and dreaming of a life far from the endless gray of the streets. Yet there was a strange, secret warmth in her chest, a feeling that sometimes, maybe, life could be different. That night, as she passed a narrow alley, she heard a strange sound, a low groan, almost human, almost something else. Her curiosity pricked at her, though fear whispered to keep walking. She hesitated, then glanced into the darkness. There, lying half-hidden behind a stack of broken crates, was a man. His clothes were expensive, his presence commanding even in weakness, but his body was twisted in pain, and a dark red stain spread across the ground beneath him. His face was pale, almost ashen, and his eyes flickered open, sharp and calculating despite the suffering that twisted his features. Alara's heart pounded. Every story she had ever heard about this city's feared mafia boss, Dorian Vera, came flooding into her mind. He was ruthless, untouchable, a man who controlled the streets like a king controls his kingdom. And here he was, lying wounded, exposed, and somehow vulnerable. "Are you alive?" she whispered, stepping closer. Her voice trembled despite her attempt to sound calm. Dorian's eyes fixed on her, burning with something between anger and disbelief. He tried to speak but coughed instead, blood flecking his lips. "You should," he croaked. "You shouldn't be here." Fear clashed with curiosity in Alara's chest. Something inside her refused to leave him to die. She noticed a strange shimmer around his wound, a dark, curling smoke that moved like it had a life of its own. Her mother had taught her about herbs and old remedies, but this was different. This was magic, dangerous magic. I can help," she said, her voice firmer now though her hands shook. "Please don't die here." Dorian's eyes narrowed. He tried to sit up, but the pain made him wince. "Help me, you don't even know what you're dealing with." "I may not," she admitted, "but I won't just leave you here." She crouched beside him, pressing her hands gently near the wound. Her fingers glowed faintly, a soft silver light that surprised her. She had never shown anyone her ability to manipulate small bursts of energy, small threads of life, but the urgency of the moment pushed her beyond fear. The dark smoke hissed, retreating slightly at her touch. Dorian's chest rose and fell unevenly, his breath shallow, but the color slowly returned to his skin. For a moment, the alley was silent except for the rain and the faint hum of energy between them. He studied her with piercing intensity. Who are you?" he asked finally, his voice hoarse. "Alara," she said simply. I'm just someone who can't leave you here to die." There was a pause. Then, in a voice almost too low to hear, he said, "You have power. You should not with me." She didn't fully understand what he meant, but she nodded. "I don't know what's happening to you, but I won't let it take you. Not tonight." Dorian's lips twitched, almost a smirk, almost a grimace. "Brave or foolish?" He coughed again, and the faint light around her hands dimmed. She felt her energy draining, but she ignored it. Her fear of him was still there, but the sight of him in pain, so human and fragile beneath the aura of danger, stirred something deeper. Compassion, something like hope. The rain continued to pour. The streets were empty. Time seemed to stretch, the alley existing in a bubble separate from the world outside. Alara worked in silence, murmuring words she didn't fully understand, letting her energy flow into him. Slowly the smoke faded, curling upward and disappearing into the night. Finally, Dorian's eyes closed briefly. When he opened them again, they were sharper, more alive. He was still weak, but the immediate danger had passed. He looked at her, and for the first time his fearsome reputation seemed almost human, vulnerable. "You saved me," he said, voice rough but steadying. "I did," Alara replied softly, "and I would do it again." Dorian's gaze didn't soften, not entirely. But something changed, a subtle shift in the air between them. He pushed himself slowly to a sitting position, leaning against the cold brick wall. He winced but did not protest further. "You are remarkable," he said finally. Alara bit her lip, unsure what to say. She had never been praised for anything, never recognized outside of the diner. And yet, looking into his intense, calculating eyes, she felt a strange connection, a thread tying their fates together. "You should go," Dorian said after a long pause, his tone sharper now, reminding her of the danger he represented. "This is not a place for someone like you. I don't know what this will do to you." "I'm not leaving," she said, surprising even herself. "Not while you need me." Dorian studied her for a long moment, and a flicker of something passed over his expression, something she couldn't name. Respect, awe, or maybe recognition that the world was not as simple as power and fear. Whatever it was, it made him pause. Then he said quietly, "You shouldn't have saved me, but now you belong to me." The words chilled her, yet they carried no threat, only a strange weight. She realized that her life had just changed forever. She was no longer just Alara, a poor waitress walking home in the rain. She was part of something far bigger, far darker, and far more dangerous. The alley seemed to shrink around them, the rain heavier, the night darker. Somewhere in the city, sirens wailed, but it felt distant, like a world that no longer mattered. The only truth was here between them, danger and power, life and death, fear and the strange stirrings of something more. Alara's heart pounded. She had saved a man feared by everyone, a man whose name alone made people tremble. And now that man looked at her with eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. "Why me?" she whispered, though she did not expect an answer. Dorian did not answer immediately. He closed his eyes for a moment, then said, voice low and measured, "Because you dared. Because you have fire, and because fate does not always follow the rules we expect." Alara shivered, partly from the cold, partly from the weight of his words. She did not understand him, nor did she fully understand what had happened tonight. All she knew was that the night had changed her life forever, and the city, with all its darkness, would never feel the same again. Slowly, Dorian shifted to stand, leaning heavily on the wall. "Walk with me," he said. "I will get us out of here. But you must be careful. The world you step into is not forgiving." Alara hesitated, then nodded. Her pulse raced, but she felt alive, more alive than she had ever felt behind the counter of the diner or beneath the dim light of her apartment. She followed him, stepping carefully over puddles and broken stones. And as they moved through the rain-slick streets, a strange understanding passed between them, an unspoken bond that neither fully understood, but both could not ignore. The night whispered promises and dangers, and somewhere in the shadows, the city waited, unaware that the story of Alara and Dorian had just begun. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the cold, pale moonlight. Alara followed Dorian through twisting alleys and hidden passages, places she had never known existed in the city she thought she knew so well. Every shadow seemed alive, every corner whispered danger. Yet Dorian moved with calm certainty, like a predator guiding her through a world she was not meant to understand. Eventually, they reached a tall, black iron gate. Beyond it, the faint glow of lanterns lit a sprawling mansion, its walls both elegant and intimidating. Dorian pushed it open, and the heavy hinges groaned like a warning. Alara stepped inside, her eyes widening at the grandeur. Marble floors stretched in every direction, adorned with intricate patterns. Candles flickered in golden sconces, casting warm light against the cold stone. It was beautiful, but it felt like a fortress. A palace built not just for wealth, but for control. Dorian moved through the hallways with ease, every step deliberate. "You should be careful here," he said quietly. "This is my world, and it is not kind to strangers." Alara nodded, feeling both awe and fear. I'm just trying to help, she said softly. He stopped and looked at her. His eyes were sharp, searching, as if trying to see through her very soul. You are brave or foolish, perhaps both. Alara's cheeks warmed, but she did not step back. Something inside her refused to shrink in the presence of this man who commanded fear and respect from everyone in the city. They reached a dimly lit room, sparsely furnished but elegant. Dorian gestured for her to sit on a soft chair while he leaned against the window, his gaze lost in the city lights below. "Why did you save me?" he asked after a long silence. His voice was low, almost vulnerable. Alara hesitated. I couldn't leave you there to die." "I don't know why, maybe because I felt you needed me." He frowned, a shadow crossing his face. "Do you know what I am, the life I have lived?" "I only know what I see," she replied. "A man in pain who is afraid of being alone." His lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "You see too much. It could be dangerous." Alara's heart pounded. She felt a strange connection to him, an unexplainable bond that both frightened and thrilled her. For the first time, she realized that life could be bigger than the small, safe world she had known. Days passed in the mansion. Alara found herself learning the rhythms of Dorian's world. Servants moved quietly, eyes down, and visitors rarely came. Rumors of magic, curses, and power whispered through the halls, carried in hushed tones and careful glances. Dorian kept her close, not out of possessiveness, but because she had touched something within him that no one else had. He was strict and commanding, but not cruel to her. He tested her patience and courage with small challenges, asking her to carry messages, move through dangerous parts of the city, and face threats she did not fully understand. Each task left her trembling, but each time she survived. And each time Dorian watched her with those sharp eyes, a storm of admiration, curiosity, and something unspoken simmering beneath. One night, Alara found him alone in the garden, the moonlight turning his dark hair silver. He was staring at the fountain, hands clasped behind his back. "You should rest," she said softly, walking toward him. He did not turn. "Rest is a luxury I cannot afford, and yet," his voice faltered slightly, "I feel different when you are near. I do not know why." Alara's stomach fluttered. "Maybe because you trust me more than you trust anyone." Dorian finally looked at her, his gaze intense. "Trust is dangerous, and yet you inspire it." "Why?" she swallowed, unsure how to answer. "Because I know what it is to survive. To keep going when the world seems against you. And I see the same in you. Maybe you just forgot it along the way." For the first time, Dorian laughed, a sound that was low, almost musical, but tinged with darkness. "You are strange, and yet I find myself drawn to you, Alara. As if the world outside these walls has no meaning unless you are in it." Alara felt heat rise to her cheeks. She wanted to step closer, to reach for him, but something in his expression warned her to wait. There was a wall around him, built over years of pain, betrayal, and power. Yet she felt the first cracks forming. Days turned into weeks, and the city beyond their walls grew restless. Whispers reached them, rumors that Dorian had survived the attack, that his enemies were planning retaliation. The mansion, once a place of relative safety, became a court of tension. Every visitor, every shadow, felt like a threat. Alara and Dorian faced these dangers together. She discovered that Dorian's enemies were not only human. Some wielded dark magic, curses, and ancient grudges. And in these moments, she realized that her own magic, once hidden, was not insignificant. She could help him in ways others could not. One evening, a messenger arrived, trembling and pale. They know you are alive," he said, addressing Dorian. "They will come for you, and for the girl who helped you." Dorian's eyes darkened. "I expected as much, but I did not expect her to survive." He looked at Alara. "Yet here you are. And now, you are part of this world, whether you like it or not." Fear mingled with excitement in Alara's chest. She understood that nothing would ever be the same again. She had crossed a line, entered a world where danger and power collided, where every choice carried weight and where Dorian's life, and perhaps her own, was always in peril. They trained together in secret, in hidden halls of the mansion. Dorian taught her to move swiftly, to recognize threats, to trust her instincts. She taught him small spells and techniques, refining her control over the energy she could summon. Slowly, they began to rely on each other in ways that went beyond survival. During these moments they talked, not just about survival or danger, but about who they were. Dorian shared fragments of his past, betrayal by those he once trusted, a family curse that followed him like a shadow, a life spent balancing fear and respect. He spoke sparingly, but Alara listened, and she shared her own story: life without family, struggles to survive, moments of loneliness and longing for something more. He listened, and for once he did not judge or mock. He simply understood. One night, as they practiced a spell together in the library, a loud crash interrupted them. A group of masked intruders had found their way into the mansion. Dorian moved immediately, commanding the shadows around him with deadly precision. Alara followed, her heart racing, energy flowing through her hands. Together they fought, not with violence for cruelty, but with skill, cunning, and trust. The intruders were powerful, but Dorian and Alara's bond made them stronger. Side by side, they pushed back the attackers, and for a moment, amidst the chaos, Alara realized she no longer feared him. She feared nothing as long as they stood together. When the last intruder fled, Dorian looked at her, chest heaving. "You are stronger than I imagined," he said, voice low, almost tender. Alara blushed but did not step back. "We are stronger together," she said. He studied her, eyes lingering on her face. "You are dangerous," he murmured. "Not because of what you can do with your magic, but because of who you are. You change the rules without knowing it." Alara felt a thrill she had never known before. She was part of something vast, something dangerous and beautiful. She was no longer just a poor waitress. She was a force that could influence a man who had once ruled the city through fear alone. But as the adrenaline faded, reality returned. The mansion was quiet, but the threat had not passed. Outside, the city waited, dark and hungry. And Dorian, for all his power, was still a target. As they sat together in the library, tending to minor injuries from the fight, Dorian's expression grew distant. "They will come again," he said, "and next time they may not be so easily defeated. You must be ready, I must be ready, and yet I find myself wishing for something I thought I had lost." Alara tilted her head, sensing the unspoken words. "What is it?" He looked at her, the shadows of the room framing his face. "Trust, and perhaps something more. Something I do not allow myself to feel, something dangerous." Alara understood in a way that went beyond words. Love, trust, and vulnerability were all weapons in this world of shadows, and for the first time she realized that she did not want to run from them. The night ended with the mansion silent once more, but both of them knew the storm outside had only just begun. Their bond had grown stronger, but danger lingered, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And somewhere in the darkness, enemies watched, planning the next move. The night was heavier than usual. Fog rolled through the streets like a living thing, curling around lampposts and creeping along the edges of buildings. In the mansion, Dorian and Alara stood in the highest tower, looking out at the city below. The glow of distant fires reflected the unrest of a city that had not forgotten its master had survived. Alara's heart pounded in her chest. She had grown accustomed to danger since the night she had first found Dorian in the alley, but tonight felt different. A shadow moved in the corner of her vision, sharp and deliberate. Someone was watching. Dorian did not speak immediately. His dark eyes, usually so unreadable, softened slightly as they rested on her. "I can feel it too," he said quietly. "Something is coming, something we cannot ignore." Alara took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'm ready," she said, though the uncertainty in her voice betrayed her calm. "Whatever it is, we face it together." For the first time, Dorian allowed himself a small, almost human smile. "You are braver than you know. Perhaps that is why fate brought us together." Days passed in tense preparation. Dorian and Alara trained relentlessly, refining their skills, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. Dorian's magic was older, sharper, and far more dangerous than hers, but Alara's energy, soft, flowing, and pure, was the counterbalance he did not realize he needed. Together, they became a team that no enemy could easily predict. One evening, Alara discovered something troubling. While practicing a spell to reinforce protective wards around the mansion, she noticed a strange shimmer in the air near Dorian's study. It pulsed like a heartbeat, dark and rhythmic, and she instinctively recoiled. "Dorian," she said cautiously, her hand hovering near his. "There's something wrong, something inside you." Dorian's expression darkened. He did not deny it. "It is the curse," he admitted, voice low. "I have lived with it for years, buried beneath power and fear, but it is not gone. It waits, and it grows stronger when I am weak." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. The magic that had first drawn them together, the very power she had used to save him, was tied to something far more dangerous than she had imagined. "You can fight it," she said firmly. "Together, we can find a way." He shook his head, a shadow of doubt crossing his face. "It is not so simple. The curse is born of betrayal, of bloodlines and mistakes I cannot undo. To remove it, I would have to surrender a part of myself I have guarded for decades." Alara took his hand gently. "You've already let me see that part of you," she said softly, "and I don't fear it. I'm not leaving you." Dorian's eyes softened, but only for a moment. He pulled away, pacing the floor. "You don't understand. The curse will change you too if we try to fight it." "I cannot risk your life. I trusted you when no one else did," she whispered. "I'll trust you again, that's all I can do." A tense silence filled the room. Outside, the city seemed to hold its breath. Then came the first real attack. A fire burned near the city's edge, lighting the night sky with flickering red light. Dorian's enemies, aware of his survival, had chosen the moment to strike. From the shadows, figures emerged, skilled, ruthless, and imbued with magic that sent a chill down Alara's spine. Dorian moved first, a shadow among shadows, his presence commanding and terrifying. Alara followed instinctively, energy sparking from her hands, ready to shield him and herself. Together, they fought not with rage but with precision. Every movement was calculated, every spell deliberate. The mansion, their home, became a battleground. Amidst the chaos, Dorian faltered briefly, the curse flaring violently within him. Dark smoke twisted around his limbs, weakening him. Alara acted without hesitation, placing her hands near his chest, channeling her energy into him. The light from her magic pushed back the darkness, binding it just enough to give him strength. "You're stronger than I thought," Dorian said, gasping as he regained his footing. His gaze met hers, filled with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something that scared him. "I'm here," she said simply. "I won't let it take you." For the first time, Dorian allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the curse could be broken. After the intruders were driven back, the mansion was silent once more. The fire outside had burned itself out, leaving the city dark and quiet. Alara and Dorian stood together in the garden, the cool night air brushing against their faces. "You risked so much tonight," Dorian said, his voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. "I shouldn't have let you, but I am grateful, and more than that, I am glad you are here." Alara met his gaze, sensing the unspoken truth between them. "I'm not afraid," she said. "Not of the curse, not of your enemies, not even of you." Dorian's lips twitched, almost forming a smile. "You are remarkable, Alara, more remarkable than anyone I have ever known." They were silent for a long moment, standing together under the moonlight, the tension of battle replaced by something softer, more intimate. For the first time, Dorian allowed himself to feel something he had buried long ago: hope. And in that hope he felt something dangerous, the possibility of love, But the city would not rest, and neither would the curse. The next day brought news that would shake them both. A messenger arrived, breathless and terrified. They know about the curse," he said. "And they have found a way to exploit it. They will come for him and for you." Dorian's face darkened, the weight of responsibility settling back onto his shoulders. "I should have expected this," he muttered. "The curse has always been a weapon for those who wish to see me destroyed." Elara stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. "Then we face it together," she said firmly. "Whatever they plan, we will not fall." He looked at her, his eyes softening. "You are brave and stubborn. I should have known better than to let you into my world." "You let me in," she said, "and now you cannot let me go. That is what matters." Dorian's chest rose and fell slowly. He wanted to speak, to confess the feelings stirring within him, but the words lodged in his throat. Fear, pride, and the shadow of the curse kept him silent. Yet in his silence, Elara understood. She did not need words. She felt his longing, his fear, and his hope all at once. Days turned into nights, and the tension in the city grew. Dorian and Elara trained relentlessly, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Their bond strengthened with every shared moment, every fight, every whispered conversation in the quiet hours of the night. But the curse remained, a constant shadow over Dorian's power. It whispered to him, reminding him of betrayal, of mistakes, of the darkness within. And yet, Elara's presence, her courage, and her light began to change him. Slowly he allowed himself to hope that the curse could be undone, not by magic alone, but by trust, courage, and perhaps love. One evening, as they sat together in the library, Dorian spoke quietly. "Elara, I have spent my life fearing loss, fearing betrayal, fearing love. And yet with you I feel something I have not felt in years, peace, and yet it frightens me." Elara reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "It is not weakness to feel," she said softly. "It is courage, and you are the bravest person I know." For a moment he allowed himself to believe her. He leaned slightly closer, the distance between them shrinking. But before anything more could happen, a shadow passed the window, sharp and deliberate. Dorian's eyes snapped open, alert, and Elara felt her heart leap in her chest. "They are coming," he whispered, "and this time it will not be easy." Elara nodded, gripping his hand. "We are ready," she said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." And somewhere in the dark corners of the city, enemies moved with quiet determination, unaware that they were about to face not just a man feared by all, but a pair bound by trust, courage, and a bond that even the darkest magic could not break. The night stretched long, filled with anticipation, danger, and the fragile hope of redemption. Dorian and Elara knew the next confrontation would test everything: power, trust, courage, and the unspoken feelings that bound them together. In the quiet moments before the storm, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that whatever happened, they would not face it alone. The mansion was quiet, but the air was heavy with tension. Outside, the city slept uneasily, unaware that the night would decide the fate of its most feared man, and the girl who had dared to enter his life. Elara stood beside Dorian in the highest tower, her hand gripping his, grounding herself against the storm that had begun both in the sky and in the world around them. "They're here," Dorian murmured, his voice low and measured. His dark eyes scanned the streets below, sharp and dangerous, and they bring something unnatural. Elara felt a chill. The curse had always been a shadow over him, a force that twisted power into pain. But this felt different. It was alive, moving with intent. "We face it together," she said firmly, echoing words they had spoken many times before. Dorian's lips twitched in a faint, grim smile. "Yes, together." A sudden crash broke the silence. The gates of the mansion groaned as an unknown figure stepped forward, carrying a relic that pulsed with dark energy. Its surface shimmered with runes older than the city, and Elara instinctively stepped back, feeling the pull of its power. Dorian's eyes narrowed. "So it begins." The figure raised the relic, and a wave of shadow rolled toward them. The curse within Dorian flared violently, black smoke twisting around him, searing his skin with its presence. Alara's heart leapt into her throat. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a force tied to Dorian's very bloodline, a reminder of all the pain, betrayal, and mistakes that had built up over generations. Ilara, Dorian's voice snapped her back to focus. Now. Without hesitation, she raised her hands, energy flowing through her like a river of silver light. She directed it toward him, letting the warmth of her power mix with his darkness. For the first time, their energies intertwined, not as separate forces but as one. The shadow hissed and recoiled, but it did not vanish. The relic pulsed faster, drawing energy from the curse, threatening to overwhelm them both. Dorian's knees buckled under the strain, and Alara caught him instinctively, channeling every ounce of her strength into him. "You must face it," she shouted over the roar of the wind and magic. "You are stronger than this curse." Dorian's eyes met hers, wide with pain, fear, and a strange hope. He took a deep breath, centering himself. I trust you," he whispered. "Show me the way." Alara's hands glowed brighter. She closed her eyes, focusing not on the danger but on the bond between them. Every memory of courage, every act of trust, every moment they had shared flowed through her. The relic shuddered, the shadows twisting violently, but the light from Alara's magic pushed them back, softening their edges. For a long, tense moment, nothing moved. Then slowly, the shadows began to recede, drawn back into the relic, shrinking under the combined force of Dorian's acceptance of his own vulnerability and Alara's unwavering courage. Dorian collapsed to the floor, exhausted but alive. Alara knelt beside him, hands still glowing faintly as she channeled the last threads of energy into him. He looked up at her, breath heavy, eyes soft. "You saved me," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "No," she replied, shaking her head. "We saved each other." For the first time, Dorian allowed himself to smile. Not the cold, calculated smile that had terrified so many, but a smile of genuine relief and something warmer, something human. The curse that had haunted him for decades was broken, not by force alone, but by trust, courage, and love. They rose together, and the relic, now powerless, crumbled to dust on the floor. The mysterious figure who had brought it vanished into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. The city outside was quiet, but it no longer felt threatening. The night seemed lighter, as if the world itself had breathed a sigh of relief. Alara and Dorian stood together in the garden, the first rays of dawn painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Dorian looked at her, his dark eyes reflecting both gratitude and awe. "I should have feared you," he said softly, "and yet I cannot. You are unlike anyone I have ever known." Alara's heart swelled. She had stepped into his dangerous world, faced shadows, curses, and enemies, and survived, not just because of her power, but because of their bond. "I am not afraid of you," she said, "or of what comes next. I am here, Dorian, and I will not leave." He reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "I have lived my life in darkness, ruling through fear, protecting myself with walls no one could breach. But you showed me a different way, a way to trust, a way to feel again." The words hung between them, heavy with emotion, carrying the weight of years of fear, pain, and isolation. And for the first time, Dorian allowed himself to hope, not just for survival, but for something more. Days passed after the battle, and life slowly returned to the mansion. The city remained dangerous, but its shadows no longer loomed as threats. They were reminders of a past that had been overcome. Dorian and Alara continued to train, to strengthen each other, and to explore the bond that had grown from trust into something deeper, something unspoken but undeniable. One evening, as they walked through the quiet garden, Dorian paused. The moonlight caught his face, revealing the lines of exhaustion, determination, and something softer, almost tender. "Alara," he said, voice low and deliberate, "I have spent my life fearing loss, fearing betrayal, fearing love. And yet, I have come to understand that the greatest strength comes not from fear, but from connection, from trust, from the courage to open one's heart. Alara smiled, stepping closer. Then let us face everything together, she said. Whatever comes, we will not face it alone. He looked at her, the weight of his past lifted by her presence. You have changed me, he admitted. Not just tonight, not just in battle, but in ways I did not believe were possible. Their hands met, fingers intertwining. The warmth of her touch grounded him, reminded him that even a life steeped in darkness could be softened by light. And in that moment, Dorian realized something profound. Redemption was not about undoing the past. It was about choosing to embrace the present, with someone willing to walk beside him through every shadow. As dawn broke fully over the city, bathing the mansion in golden light, Dorian and Alara stood together on the balcony. The wind carried the scent of rain-soaked streets, of distant gardens, and of beginnings. The curse that had haunted Dorian's bloodline for decades was gone. The city, once ruled by fear, now held a new hope, born not from power alone, but from courage, trust, and love. Dorian turned to Alara, his expression softening. You have given me more than I ever imagined. Not just life, not just survival, but the chance to feel again. To hope. To love. Alara's eyes glistened with emotion. And you have shown me that even in the darkest places, light can exist. That courage can be found in unexpected moments. That love can change everything. For a long moment they simply stood together, hands clasped, hearts beating in sync. The city below them was quiet, the shadows retreating in the morning light. And in that quiet they knew their story was far from over, but the greatest battles had been fought and the deepest bonds had been forged. Dorian finally spoke, voice soft but certain. I do not know what the future holds. There will always be shadows. There will always be danger, but I know that whatever comes, I will face it with you. Alara smiled, her heart full. And I will face it with you. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying away the remnants of fear, curses, and past mistakes. Together they had survived darkness, faced enemies, and conquered a curse that had haunted generations. Together they would face the world, and whatever new challenges it brought, with courage, trust, and a bond that could never be broken. As the sun rose fully over the city, bathing everything in gold, Dorian and Alara stood side by side. Their journey had begun in shadows and fear, but it would continue in hope, light, and love. The mansion, the city, and the world beyond were theirs, not by fear, but by the strength they had found in each other. And somewhere in the quiet of the morning, the first birds of the season sang, a soft, joyful reminder that even after darkness, dawn always comes.